Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between vegetarianism and veganism, because it's very often the case that these two get bundled together as if they're all one and the same thing. Now, if you look at what a vegetarian eats, what a vegan eats, you'll see that the major difference is that the vegans don't eat dairy products and eggs. Now you might wonder why this is so, because it's very clear that if you're going to eat meat, you need to kill an animal. But it's not so blatantly clear that if you're going to drink milk, you don't necessarily have to kill an animal. At least that's what everybody thinks. I'm recalling back when I was a child, I used to think there was such an animal as a milk cow or a dairy cow, and her purpose was to eat grass and produce milk. And we humans were doing these animals a huge favour by milking them, because if we didn't, then their udders would explode. Now, it was only later on that I realised just how ridiculous this actually is to be thinking in this way, because cows, just like every other mammal species out there, they only ever produce milk after they've given birth. And what happens to a cow in the dairy industry is that she's basically forced pregnant on what the industry calls a rape rack, and then 9 months later on, when she gives birth to her offspring, that offspring is physically forcibly removed from her, which is incredibly traumatic for both the mother and the child, and the mother will often bellow for days on end for that missing baby of hers. If the calf happens to be a male, then he will be taken away for slaughter, and if the calf is a female, then she'll end up in the same kind of production line as her mother, separated from her mother, and she'll become also a dairy cow. And this is basically standard practice within the dairy industry, separation of mother and child. It's not something which I think any of us should be supporting, and there's no two ways around it. I mean, they're never really left together anymore, because the milk in that industry, the milk is intended for humans, not for the calf, so they have to be separated. There's no two ways around it. On the very rare occasions where the calf is allowed to stay with the mother for a period of days or possibly weeks, it wouldn't be much longer than that, it's sometimes or quite often the case that they put these diabolical little flaps on the calf's nose. They attach it to the nose, and the flap falls down over the mouth, so that when the calf tries to suckle from his mother, he's unable to do so because the flap is in the way. And the other thing about this, so diabolically evil really, is this contraption. It has thorns on the other side of it, so that when it pushes up against the udder of the mother, it hurts the mother, and the mother will reject her offspring. So that's why basically vegans don't support dairy and don't take any dairy, because at the end of the day, also we have to realize that this forced pregnancy is a yearly thing for the cow. It only happens maybe 4 or 5 times at the most, and then the mother, she is also killed. Now, cows generally live between 20 and 30 years, and in the dairy industry they're slaughtered no later than 5 years old. If you think that milk is innocent and that it's just an innocent white liquid that you drink, think again, because it's not. It's got blood behind it too. If you're vegetarian and you're taking milk, please reconsider doing this. Please look into what is actually going on in this system, and instead of going to the supermarket and taking that carton of milk off the shelf, get some soy milk or rice milk. If you're going to have milk at all, just choose those options. I have to say, there's a lot of vegetarians out there who actually do become vegetarians out of compassion for the animals, but they just don't realize that they're still supporting animal exploitation by being vegetarian and not vegan. Anyway, the other thing is the eggs. Now, eggs, most of the eggs that we find in supermarket shelves come from factory farms, where the chickens are in cages in huge halls, or if they're not in cages, they might be running around free on there, but there's actually so many of them in that hall, there could be 10,000 in one shed, that they can't move. But these ones that aren't in the cage are actually called free range, and that's to give humans this kind of feeling of, oh, everything is good free range, that's got to be good, isn't it? But free range label doesn't really mean anything. The state that those chickens are in is just as bad as the ones in the cage. Naturally, all birds lay eggs, and the fact that we've singled out chickens to be to produce eggs for us is kind of also something that's wrong with this world, really, that we single out these animals. And I'm actually getting eaten alive by mosquitoes at this moment. You wouldn't believe it. They're all over my oh, I've got thousands of them. I think I'm going to have to go in. Sorry about this. I chose the wrong time of day to do this. I'm going to have to stop.